In Argentina, the police repressed demonstrators in Cordoba that were peacefully protesting against the neoliberal decree imposed by President Javier Milei. The World Health Organization said that northern Gaza is now without any functional hospitals due to a lack of fuel, staff, and supplies amid the ongoing Israeli onslaught. India's opposition alliance held a protest for a second day Friday against the suspension of more than 140 lawmakers from parliament by Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government for obstructing proceedings. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Argentina, the police repressed a peaceful protest in Cordoba against the neoliberal decree imposed by President Javier Milei. During Thursday night, police officers repressed with pepper gas and rubber bullets hundreds of demonstrators who were protesting in the center of the capital of Cordoba. Local media reported that at least 12 people were arrested and several injured. The protest expressed its rejection to the decree of necessity and urgency announced by the ultra-right Milei, which proposes a deep deregulation of the economy, lays the foundation for the privatization of public companies, and repeals laws and regulations that protect essential rights of Argentines. At the same time, for the second consecutive night in Buenos Aires, a crowd of people demonstrated in front of Congress of the nation. Shouting they should all go away, demonstrators demanded the legislative power to reject the package of measures that threaten the working class. The cacerolazos and demonstrations were replicated in hundreds of cities of the country, such as Rosario, Santa Fe, Mar del Plata, Mendoza, Junín, and Esquel.
We are workers. We are unemployed. We are teachers. We are pensioners. Yesterday, not a single idea came out. Not a single idea came out. They overturn laws, they break the social order, they take away our rights as workers, they take away the rights that we have in stake for so many years, that we have fought for and we have achieved, and now it turns out that we do not deserve these rights. And they say that for freedom we have to live like this. That is why we are here.
In this context, the main workers' union in Argentina reaffirmed a plan of struggle and agreed to march to the courts to demand that the courts repeal the decree of necessity and urgency.
We believe that this is an issue with a political edge that has to be defined by the parliament and has a legal edge where on Wednesday we will mobilize and we will deliver to the courts a request for unconstitutionality and an injunction to suspend all the effects of the DNU, not only from the labor aspect, but everything that has to do with the reality of the working men and women, ranging from the rental law to the reality of the suppression of the traveler's status. Milei's government despises workers. It was demonstrated with yesterday's DNU, and as Camrey Daher said, we are going to fight in the streets, in the courts, and whatever we have to be, so that this DNU falls. We know that there are many opposition deputies who will have the necessary votes, according to some media, so that the DNU.
In Cuba, the second ordinary period of sessions of the National Assembly of the People's Power of Cuba in its 10th legislature concludes on Friday. On this date, 3 bills are scheduled to be presented, among them the Public Health Bill. The more than 400 Cuban deputies will also discuss the draft law on the Military Prosecutor's Office and the draft law on the system of attention to complaints and petitions of the people. They will also review the updating of the legislative schedule for the coming year. This Friday is also scheduled the approval of the agency and the provincial government that will render account in July 2024 before the National Assembly, and that of the agency under high supervision. The debates take place in a difficult economic context worsened by the economic blockade maintained by the U.S. on the Caribbean nation. In the United Kingdom, the economy is on the brink of recession after new data showed that gross domestic product contracted in the third quarter of this year. Data released Friday by the National Bureau of Statistics indicate that the country's economy fell 0.1% during the third quarter. In terms of output, there was a 0.2% fall in the services sector, offsetting a 0.4% rise in the construction sector and a 0.1% increase in the manufacturing sector. The United Kingdom will therefore be in technical recession if gross domestic product falls in the October-December period, as such a scenario is equivalent to 2 consecutive quarters of contraction. In Italy, more than 50% of women are victims of physical and psychological violence at least once in their life. Around 12 million women between the ages of 18 and 84 suffer abuse, and only 5% report the aggressions they are victims of. Specialists detail that 50.3% of women do not report abuse to the competent authorities, 16% forgive or justify the aggressor, while 11% simply choose to forget what has happened. The Institute of Clinical Physiology of the National Research Council detailed that it is important to provide knowledge to women to counteract the tendency to normalize gender violence from the cultural sphere. Turkish security forces have rounded up 304 people suspected of having links to the Islamic State extremist group in simultaneous raids across Turkey, the Interior Minister Ali Yerlikaya stated on Friday. The Interior Minister Ali Yerlikaya said the suspects were detained in 32 provinces, the majority of them in Turkey's three largest cities, Istanbul, Ankara, and Izmir. The operation, codenamed Heroes 34, was conducted jointly by the police intelligence and counterterrorism squads. Yerlikaya mentioned there was no information on the suspects' nationalities. The militant group has carried out a string of deadly attacks in Turkey, including a shooting at an Istanbul nightclub on January 1, 2017, which killed 39 people during New Year's celebrations. The ministry released a video showing images of the raids, including anti-terrorism police breaking down a door, handcuffing suspects, and leading them into police vehicles. Let's take now a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. The World Health Organization said that northern Gaza is now without any functional hospitals due to a lack of fuel, staff, and supplies. Amid the ongoing Israeli onslaught, only 9 out of 36 health facilities were partially functional in the whole of Gaza, all of them in the south of the enclave, said the W.H.O representative in occupied Palestinian territories during a press conference held in Geneva via video link. The representative said the situation is impossible to describe, with hospital corridors crammed with the injured, the sick, and the dying, and surgical procedures conducted without anesthesia, and reiterated that WHO's call for a humanitarian ceasefire. On Thursday afternoon, the Israel Defense Force announced that its 99th Division had completed a divisional operation in southern Gaza and began expanding its ground operation to the central region of the Strip. Another day of Israeli siege against the Gaza Strip, and the Palestinians are back online after 3 days of total communications blackout, leaving thousands unable to at least call an ambulance for medical treatment. A correspondent in Gaza, Nur Harasin, reports directly from the ground.
We are back after 3 days without any network or internet connection. This problem that is biting very, very hard on the people of Gaza, and not only the idea of not being able to connect with the other world, but also the fact that even those who are injured are not able to call the ambulances and connect with the hospitals in a way to for the paramedics to come and evacuate them. Previously, actually, the electronic SIM cards used to work. However, now all the foreigns and eSIMs are mostly blocked. Meanwhile, what is happening here on the ground? Continuous Israeli strikes, specifically on Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza, also in middle Gaza in Khan Yunis city. The Palestinian Health Ministry that said that 320 Palestinians were, 420 Palestinians were killed in Gaza over the past 24 hours. There is battles on the ground between the Palestinian militants and the Israeli forces in different areas around Gaza. At the same time, Gaza is going through its worst humanitarian crisis. In a report yesterday, the UN said that Gaza is recording the lowest level of its food insecurity in its history. Nur Harazin, teleSUR, Gaza.
Intense Israeli bombardment of several areas in the Gaza Strip has claimed the lives of 390 Palestinians and injured more than 700 in the past 48 hours, according to health officials. At least 6 civilians were killed Friday in an airstrike on a house in eastern Khan Yunis, according to the Palestinian news agency WAFA. Several wounded, including a baby, were taken to Nasser Hospital. Attacks were also reported in Rafah and the Nusayrat refugee camp. In the north of the Strip, 9 people were killed, including a mother and her 5 children, in an attack on a house in the Habalia refugee camp. According to health officials, 20,057 people have been martyred and more than 53,000 people wounded after 77 days of total Israeli siege on the besieged Palestinian enclave. UN's Global Integrated Food Security Phase Classification Partnership warned that Gaza faces critical levels of food insecurity in the region. According to the agency, 93% of the population of the Gaza Strip faces critical hunger rates with insufficient food and high levels of malnutrition. It further noted that the lack of food is impacting the proliferation of diseases throughout the enclave, especially among children, pregnant and lactating women, and the elderly. It is worth mentioning that due to the devastation caused by the war and the Israeli blockade against the Palestinian city, basic supplies have been critically scarce for the Gazan population since October 7th. On Friday, Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Taye accused Israel of carrying out massacres in the Gaza Strip and of trying to starve the population of the coastal enclave through the blockade and systematic bombardments. In an interview with Palestine TV, Taye denounced that the Israeli authorities and army are killing for the sake of killing and acting in a spirit of revenge, committing unprecedented massacres in full view of the whole world. The head of the Palestinian government rejected proposals for a humanitarian truce but defended an immediate halt to the aggression. The Prime Minister again criticized the U.S. veto of several draft resolutions in the UN Security Council calling for an end to the fighting in Gaza and stressed that Washington should review its position in maintaining its protection of Israel in the Security Council. Since the beginning of the Israeli siege in the Gaza Strip, the number of dead and displaced has been increasing every day. Displaced citizens have lost their homes, clothes and belongings. With little money, they turn to the low-cost clothing markets to find some clothes to protect them from the cold and rain. Let's see the testimony of one of the displaced in this exclusive material of our collaborator, Mohamed Al-Saife.
We left our homes with only the clothes we had on. When we arrived here in Rafah, we had to look for second-hand clothes here in the stores that sell them at low prices. New clothes are expensive, and when we had to leave our homes, we left our money and all our clothes and belongings behind. Now we are here looking for big jackets to protect us from the cold and rain. The tent is not watertight, and water leaks in, especially at night.
In the United States, calls for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip are echoed by trade unions and other organizations in a movement that is spreading more and more in the North American country. On Thursday, dozens of Orthodox Jews joined the mobilization of different organizations and trade unions that took to the streets of New York to demand peace for Palestine and a definitive ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. Demonstrators carried signs calling for an end once and for all to the Israeli siege, which has claimed the lives of more than 8,000 Palestinian children. Let's remember that the United States government granted Israel about $3,800 million in annual military aid, while President Joe Biden asked Congress for an additional $14,300 million. The government of Spain vetoed the participation of the European Union in the mission promoted by the United States to send surveillance ships to the Red Sea. The measure was taken during the meeting of the Working Group of Foreign Affairs Advisors, where the government blocked the formalization of intensifying the exchange of information and increasing the presence of additional ships in the Red Sea. The mission vetoed by the government was supported by the 27 member states of the European Union, and it was expected to be approved unanimously during the Council. The operation promoted by the United States seeks to respond to Yemen's actions against the ships of countries that support Israel amid the siege against Gaza in support of the Palestinian cause. We invite you to join. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Found your break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. India's opposition alliance in India held a protest for a second day Friday against the suspension of more than 140 lawmakers from parliament by Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government for obstructing proceedings. Hundreds of followers of various political parties and the public filled up Jantar Mantar, a protest site at the heart of the capital, to listen to their representatives. The acronym India stands for Indian National Development Inclusive Alliance and comprises 28 opposition parties who have accused the government of threatening democracy in the country. Lawmakers were suspended over the past week for demanding a statement from Home Minister Amit Shah about a December 13 security breach when two intruders stormed the chamber by jumping from the visitors' gallery and releasing yellow smoke canisters. The opposition blocked the proceedings of Parliament for several days by raising anti-government slogans and carrying placards into the chamber. The suspended members are now barred from entering Parliament's chamber. Vote counting is underway in some polling stations in the Democratic Republic of the Congo after the country's elections kicked off on Wednesday. Some 44 million voters in the DRC went to the polls to elect a new president, members of the National Assembly and provincial assemblies, as well as municipal councillors, with delays in deployment of voting materials and reports of sporadic violence at some polling stations. Returning officers from the DRC's Electoral Commission have started counting votes in some polling stations around the capital, Kinshasa. The Commission has faced serious challenges delivering ballot papers and electronic voting machines in many areas across the country due to the poor road network. According to the official electoral calendar, provisional results are expected on December 31st, and the president-elect will be sworn in on January 20th next year. The intensification of the fighting in Sudan during the last weeks caused the displacement of more than 300,000 people. The United Nations organization stated that the increase in tensions and the conflict in the region caused an increase in the number of Sudanese who have fled their homes. The International Organization for Migration detailed that since the beginning of the conflict in April, around 500,000 people have been displaced inside and outside the country following the conflict between the army and the rapid support forces. The UN also stated that after 8 months of armed conflict in Sudanese territory, the most vulnerable are the citizens who are facing an economic and health crisis. On Friday, authorities in Germany reported transportation disruptions due to the winter storm that hit northern Europe. The national railway company Deutsche Bahn canceled services from Hamburg and Hanover to Frankfurt and Munich, while long-distance services from Hamburg north to Kiel and Flensburg were also suspended for safety reasons. On the other hand, the coastal areas of the North Sea are under flood warnings, while also in Hamburg the river Elbe has flooded, causing severe damage to streets, houses, shopping centers, and the electricity supply. It should be noted that in the city of Frankfurt, Germany's busiest airport, there have been some delays, but no cancellations due to the storm. In the United States, the arrival of a storm from the Pacific causes flooding in coastal localities in Southern California. Heavy rains accompanied by thunderstorms affected the provinces of Ventura, Santa Barbara, and northwest Los Angeles, being the most affected areas. The National Weather Service forecasts that rainfall will continue this Friday in several locations in the West. In this sense, the federal agency issued an alert to the residents of southern Arizona due to the possible arrival of the storm. On Friday, Uruguayan football player Luis Suarez signed a one-year contract with Inter Miami team of the United States Football League, and everything is ready for the reunion with Lionel Messi, which share his years of glory in Barcelona. According to the official report, Inter Miami and Luis Suarez reached an agreement to join the Major League of Soccer competition with the possibility of extending for one more year. Suarez arrived from Brazilian club Grêmio de Porto Alegre, where he scored 29 goals and provided 18 assists in 54 games, which earned him the Golden Ball of the championship, a title to the best all-around player in this pitch. Thus, the striker arrives to the South Florida team to reunite with Messi and other former Football Club Barcelona players such as Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba, with whom he marked an era in the European League. Luis Suarez and Leo Messi played 6 seasons together in Barcelona Football Club of the Spanish Professional Football League. During their 6 years together, they scored a total of 478 goals, most in the history of the Catalan organization, and experts claim they could be overall the most lethal offensive duo in the history of football. It is worth noting they scored 53% of Barca's goals during that span of time. In turn, they played together 258 matches in which Barca won 187 games with 42 draws and 29 defeats. The South American players won 13 titles with an efficiency of 78% and scored 99 goals together. On being part of a new organization hand in hand with Messi, the Uruguayan said he is optimistic about what they could achieve together with their shared ambition. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.